All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to tackle a topic that is completely shaking up how we think about mental health. We're looking at some incredible new research that basically says some of the most painful, stigmatizing diagnoses we've ever had might be totally wrong. So let's just start with this. I mean, wow. This statement is designed to stop you in your tracks. And you gotta understand, this isn't just about changing a word. It's about tearing down an entire way of thinking about human struggle. And this new perspective, it offers something the old one never really could: genuine, tangible hope. To really get why this new idea is such a game changer, we first have to unpack the old one, the model that for decades has caused so much confusion and, frankly, a lot of pain. I mean, just think about those words for a second: narcissistic, borderline. They feel heavy, right? They're often thrown around as insults. But in a clinical sense, they've been treated as these permanent labels on a person's core identity. The message was that something is fundamentally, permanently broken inside of you. You can imagine, getting a diagnosis like that feels like a life sentence. Okay, so this is the shift right here, laid out plain and simple. The old way of thinking says this is who you are. It's a flaw, it's inside you, and it's permanent. The focus is all on fixing the individual, but this new view, it flips the script. It says, no, this is how you learn to survive. It's not a flaw, it's a pattern that can change. And the focus isn't on fixing a person, but on healing the relationships, the system around them. So where is this all coming from? Is it just a nice idea? Absolutely not. This incredible shift is being driven by some really compelling new science. It sparked what people are starting to call a relational revolution. Get this. A team at University College London, led by a researcher named Orestes Zavlis, has been publishing work that is turning this whole field on its head. They're using really advanced neuroscience and computer models, and what they've shown is that the behaviors we've been calling disorders are actually incredibly intelligent adaptations to early environments that were, well, chaotic or unsafe or just plain unpredictable. And this research, it really forces us to ask a huge question. What if we've been looking in the completely wrong place all along? Instead of pointing at a person and asking, what's wrong with you? The science is telling us to ask, wow, what happened to you? And what kind of relationships did you have to survive? So if these deeply ingrained patterns aren't flaws in a person's character, then what are they? This next part really gets to the core of this new way of thinking. Understanding these behaviors not as symptoms of a disease, but as brilliant, if painful, strategies for survival. The key idea here is relational adaptations. A child's brain is wired for one thing above everything else: to survive. And when its environment doesn't give it the safety and connection it needs to thrive, the brain doesn't just break, it adapts. It comes up with strategies, whatever it takes, to cope with that specific reality it's in. And this is how we can start to retranslate those old labels. That narcissistic label? Well, maybe it's actually extreme self-reliance. A strategy you learn when relying on anyone else feels incredibly dangerous. That so-called dependent behavior? It could be a desperate attachment strategy that a brain develops when it fears being abandoned more than anything else. You see, these aren't character flaws. They're more like scars from a relational battle. And on a brain level, a lot of this comes down to something called mentalizing. It's kind of a fancy word, but it just means our ability to make sense of our own minds and the minds of other people. When early relationships are chaotic, it messes with this process. It can skew how you read social cues, and that skewed way of seeing the world can harden over time into these really persistent patterns. Now, I know some of this can sound a bit bleak, but hang on, because this is where the story takes a truly hopeful turn. Because if these patterns were formed in relationships, it means they can be healed in relationships. The very thing that caused the wound holds the key to the cure. If you take just one thing away from this whole explainer, please let it be this. This idea is everything. It shifts the focus away from some hopeless, permanent condition to a dynamic, changeable pattern. It tells us that change is absolutely possible, not by trying to fix a person, but by giving them a new, healthier relational experience. So what does a healing relationship even look like? Well, the research points to a pretty clear path. And it's not about saying the perfect thing or having all the answers. It's a way of being with someone. It's about showing up authentically without getting triggered by their old patterns. It's about being consistent and caring. And it's about choosing again and again to try and understand instead of just judging. That first one, non-reactive engagement, that one is huge. It means realizing that when someone is, say, pushing you away or clinging desperately, they might not actually be reacting to you in this present moment. So often they're reacting to the ghosts of their past relationships. They're playing out an old survival script that's been wired deep, deep into their nervous system.
So, what does this all mean in the real world? Well, for families, it means the goal isn't to fix your loved one anymore. It's to change the relational dance you do together. For therapy, it means the connection between the therapist and the client becomes the main tool for healing. And really, for all of us, it means we can swap judgment for a simple but powerful question. I wonder what they had to survive to get here.
And hey, if there's any doubt left that this kind of deep change is really possible, the science of neuroplasticity gives us the final amazing answer. Our brains are not fixed. They are not set in stone. They are constantly being shaped by our experiences. New, safe, consistent, and caring relationships can literally create new neural pathways, rewriting those old survival patterns with new patterns of safety and connection. Ultimately, this whole revolution in thinking comes down to this one powerful shift. For decades, we have been asking the wrong question. This new science doesn't just give us a different answer, it demands a fundamentally different question. By moving our focus from trying to fix an individual to trying to nurture the relationships around them, we don't just change a diagnosis, we open up a whole new world of possibility for connection, for recovery, and for real, genuine hope.